How do I validate my game idea? I'm Chris Jarvis, I'm an indie game developer, and I'm kind of stuck. Let me explain. I've launched a prototype on itch.io called A Game About Making a Planet. The problem is I don't know what the threshold or the metrics are on itch.io to know if the game idea is validated. I'll explain the game and the stats since launch, but let me explain what I mean by validated. So for me, basically, it's the confidence to know that I should move on to the next stage of production. So for my game, A Game About Making a Planet, that would be going from a prototype to a demo. The problem is, I've launched 2 games so far. 10 Bells did really well. I have a post-mortem video about that if you're interested. And I launched an absolute turkey of a game called Orbs Orbs Orbs, and that totally bombed. And I also have a post-mortem video about that if you're interested. But also I have 2 games that are unreleased that are available to wishlist on Steam called Little Ghosties and Novajet. Those both don't have enough wishlists for me to feel that they are validated. So I'm not confident that when I launch a demo or launch the game that I'm going to gain enough wishlists to make it financially viable when I launch the games eventually. Whenever you launch a Steam page, you have to spend 70 quid or 100 bucks. So it isn't cheap to keep racking up these indie games. And right now, this is my full-time job. So I can't afford not to validate whatever I spend my time doing. So whatever I do, it needs to be spent validating so that I make sure that I'm not going to launch any more duds like Orbs 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 was. So right now you might be thinking, well, why don't you just validate Little Ghosties and validate Novajet so that you know if you should be working on them or not? Well, I do hear that, and I have considered that, but this is why I launched a prototype for a new game instead. Chris Jarvis, the marketing guru who has the website How to Market an Indie Game, he launched a controversial blog post about the golden age of indie games, and he's calling it the Great Conjunction. So basically what he thinks is now is a great time to stop working on your multi-year project and launch one of these really quick to make hot games that seem to be really popular at the moment. And those genres are friend swap games, incremental games, idler games, similar to A Game About Making a Planet, horror games, 10 Bells is a horror game, simulation games, rage games, auto battlers, and potentially a resurgence of what he's calling Vampire Survivors like 2.0. So that blog post hit at a time when my contract was coming to an end and I was working on Little Ghosties, but I wasn't getting any wish lists for the work I was putting out, and so I was just considering my options. So both Little Ghosties and Novajet have, in comparison, long production schedules. They have some complicated systems that need to be implemented, and they just weren't showing any signs of growth and no green flags to say, yes, this is going to be like a big hit. And so that's why I decided to create this prototype for A Game About Making a Planet to validate the idea to see if it's worth putting those other games on hold and work on this new game because it won't take too much time. But the best thing to do, I thought, was to put it on itch.io to sort of validate the idea. And so here we are with this issue. So the question is, what are the metrics, what are the statistics I need on itch.io to know that it's validated? How am I going to know that A Game About Making a Planet is going to be financially viable? That is what I'm struggling with at the moment. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. So if you are an indie game dev and you have launched games on Steam and you first went on itch.io and launched prototypes first and maybe did a bit of a beginner demo on there, let us know what your stats and figures were and see if they compare to mine and see if I'm sort of wasting my time with this new game or whether or not I should be focusing on this new game. So let me explain the game, A Game About Making a Planet. The basic idea is that you hover the cursor over the asteroids and they merge together in a really satisfying way. Then the asteroids get big and fall into the center because of gravity in a really satisfying way, slowly making a planet. Between each round, you can upgrade your ability to merge the asteroids, whether it be the time between pulses or the surface area of the gravity. Also, you can have mines which explode in a really satisfying way. So the link is in the description below. I'd love you to check out the prototype and let me know your thoughts. I'd really like to know. So this is how the current launch of the first version has gone so far. So I launched the game on Monday, and it's now Thursday, and it's had 1,027 views, 4 downloads. You can play it in browser, so I don't know why anyone would download it. 790 browser plays, which I think sounds good. It's had 2 ratings, 9 collections, and 1 comment. 8,720 impressions, and the CTR, which I think is the impressions versus the plays, is 5.99%. So it sounds good, but again, I don't have anything really to compare it to. So if you do have anything to compare it to, please let me know. So how did I get the figures currently? So what I did was I shared the game with my indie game friends and got some feedback. I also went on Reddit and posted it on the sort of relative Reddit forums, and also Discord. There's some Discord channels for indie game development, and I was asking these questions about validation and posting the link to the itch.io page as well, and had some really interesting feedback. Lots of feedback on the same few things, which is great, because what that means is that it's something that I can work towards and actually improve on to see if it then changes people's minds, or if it scratches that itch that they might have had. So here are the things from the feedback from those few playtests. Well, the first big one is that the consensus seems to be that it's a fun game. It seems fun. People enjoy spending time on it. Obviously, fun you can unpack in lots of different ways, but lots of people said, yeah, it's a fun little game. So that means I'm onto something at least, which is good. I'm not wasting my time in that respect. So all good. The biggest thing is that the mechanic is difficult to communicate to the player. So the way it works is that the mouse hovers over the asteroids, and then there's an interval of time, and then there's a pulse of gravity. So the player doesn't intrinsically know that or understand that. People were sort of trying to click on the board, which doesn't do anything. People were trying to sort of drag the asteroids into the middle. That doesn't do anything either. So communicating the mechanic is key. Another big thing is that the balancing of the upgrades is unbalanced towards the end of the game. Lots of people mention the same thing. That is kind of how I designed it to be, so it's kind of working. Let me explain. So there is currency in the game, and you can buy upgrades, and so the more you merge, the more currency you earn. The more currency you earn, the more upgrades, the more dopamine hits. So all good. The thing is, I hadn't balanced that at all on purpose, because I was just trying to test whether or not the currency was something that should be in the game at all anyway, or whether or not it should just be a completely linear process to play the game over a short sort of 15-20 minute playtime. And what I found was people seemed to be enjoying buying the upgrades, which is designed to be able to buy 1 to 3 upgrades per round. And then when people were able to buy more upgrades towards the end of the game, that seemed to make it feel unbalanced to them. So people didn't like the fact that they could suddenly buy 7 or 8 upgrades towards the end of the game. So that's great, because all I need to do is balance the currency so that each round you can only buy 1 or 2 upgrades per game. And that should solve that problem. So again, that's going to be a really quick thing to do. It's only going to take, well, maybe an hour or so to properly balance it. Another bit of feedback that I got is that it's too similar to the game that it's kind of inspired by, a game about feeding a black hole. And I hear that, and yes, I'm going to change the visuals, and I'm going to experiment with changing how the upgrades work. So I hope that it will feel a bit different to that game. The mechanic itself is very different. So I don't know whether or not that feedback has come from a place of just aesthetics, or whether or not it's just too similar to them based on an incremental game. I haven't got much feedback from core fans of a game about feeding a black hole yet. So I don't know whether or not they will feel like I'm just trying to do a rip-off clone, or whether or not they will be the ones that would say, this is different from that game. We enjoyed that game and we enjoy this game. We can tell what the differences are because they're fans of that game. So I need to kind of do a bit more testing before I'm confident as to whether or not being too similar is good or bad. In terms of marketing, I want people to think of that game when they look at my game because I then want them to buy my game. So I'm still trying to figure out where the sweet spot is there. Those are the pieces of feedback I can work on that shouldn't take too much time and implement and get another round of playtesting in. And that second round of playtesting will be answering those questions from the feedback. So is this easier to understand? Are the upgrades more balanced? And does it feel like it's its own game? I suppose is what I'll be asking next time round. But the big question that I still don't know is, when I do that second playtest, I don't know what the metrics are that is going to show me whether or not I should keep continuing with the game. So that's where I need your help. So I need stats and figures and numbers of examples of when people have done something similar to me, launched the game on itch.io, got some information, and then went on to launch a successful Steam game. So that's my roadmap. That's what I'm hoping for. And also I want to know, like, should I stop this completely? Like, no, you've launched it, people have said what they've needed to say, not enough people have played it, people aren't interested, just finish the other games that you've already got on Steam, or try and find something else to make that people will enjoy. I need to know. I'm in this kind of not knowing state. Well, that's it for this video so far. If you wanted to support me on my game dev career, then there are a few things you can help with. So I have a Patreon page that you can join. There is a Discord for the Acrylic Pixel Discord server that you can join. But the best way to support me is by buying one or both of my games. So 10 Bells is on Steam and Orbs 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 is also on Steam. So if you bought those games, that would be directly helping me, but also then you'll have something to play and enjoy. 10 Bells is the highest rated anomaly horror game on Steam. So I can say unequivocally that that is a good game because we've won awards for that game. Orbs Orbs Orbs. You could buy Orbs 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 if you want to support me. You don't have to play it, but you might enjoy it. Take a look for yourself and see what you think. So that's it for this video. I will see you in the next one.